Well, Mike and I were actually just having a debate, Dan, because he said, how are things going up there? And meaning Alabama. But to me, it sounds like you should be saying down there whenever you're talking about Alabama. But we're technically farther south than Alabama, but it is the South. It's a very confusing geographic.
But we
it's
say
up there.
We say up there to everyone except Key West. We say up there. It's up there to everyone. This is because you're from New York. Or this you're not from down here. You're from up there.
Up there to me indicates like New Jersey or Maine, not Alabama.
Well, which is it, Goodman? Go ahead and make a ruling as he joins us now because he's got a new book, We Want Bama, A Season of Hope. It's available now. Is this an uplifting book written for Alabama fans?
Well, I want to hear his ruling first.
Yes, but I want to. We want Bama, A Season of Hope. I don't associate like hopeful stories with Alabama football, but yes, please be the arbiter on this first. Are you in Alabama? Are you up there or are you down there?
Down there. But here's from up there compared to Miami. But here's what I always tell everybody. Okay, like the South ends at Gainesville, because you if you go to a football game in the swamp, they have kiosks that have to advertise genuine sweet tea, and so that's not something people have to say in Alabama. But so from Gainesville, at least they have sweet tea. From there south, it's not the South. That's what I tell people. That's where it ends.
It's the Northeast. What are you saying?
No, it's just Florida. It's his own thing.
Cuba.
Well, you have your own. You're one of the few. You can't run into many people who have lived both places, right? Miami and Alabama. You left Miami. You came to Miami from Alabama and then went back to Alabama, correct?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. No, I don't know. I really don't know anyone who's done that. Keith Askins stayed. He was like, forget y'all, I'm staying. That's an assistant for the Heat. He's from Alabama. He's now an administrator.
But you have a unique perspective on how different these two places are because politically and everywhere else, like we have seen over the last I think a whole lot of people have noticed that Miami is not like the rest of Florida, is not like Alabama. It's an entirely different world. I can't even imagine how much of a different world it was for you.
Well, Dan, I like to say that journalists are like citizens of the world, but I mean, comparing Birmingham, Alabama to Miami, like the only thing they have in common is the nickname, which is the Magic City. I mean, it's night and day different. Love Miami, and it just completely changed my entire life living there. It gave me a perspective on the world and everything that you couldn't get anywhere else. So, yeah, absolutely different than Birmingham, Alabama.
What has it been like spending this much time writing about this one subject that so many people have written about, so many people are interested on how it is that the factory of Alabama continues to work? Did you get deep inside? Were you able to get an access that we don't generally have to that program?
No, hell no. No. I mean, through reporting, and talking to parents, they let me know everything that was going on. But as far as like the University of Alabama, cooperating in any way at all, no. Of course, that they didn't do that. And in fact, I think they probably tried to hinder, my efforts along the way, as you would probably expect. But the book is actually about racial justice. It's about a team in 2020 that came together in the summer of 2020 over the act of marching to the schoolhouse door on the campus of the University of Alabama, which is an infamous place here in Alabama, because that's where Governor George Wallace stood in 1963 and said segregation now, segregation forever. He said that in his inauguration speech, but he enacted that there at the schoolhouse door. So the team marched to the schoolhouse door in the summer of 2020, and that really galvanized this team and made a statement as the most powerful force in Alabama, above everything else, that they were going to stand for racial justice. And, from there, they became like the ultimate team, as Nick Saban would say later.
Okay, you're going to have a hard time convincing anybody that this is going to be a lovable team and a lovable story of Nick Saban leading this team that has really enraged America because it's hogged all the winning.
But Saban has become more lovable. I think people are starting to like Nick Saban a little bit.
I'm guessing that the reason, Joe, that you pour your life into a book for a year and a half, it's a difficult undertaking. And you're at an age now and you've lived some, so I'm guessing it's the macro that lured you, right? Like, how do I tell this difficult story about the history of race in our area through this football team?
That's right. That's exactly what I sat down to write the book, and it's really for me, it was a crazy story because I actually had a contract to write a book before the pandemic happened. Okay. And the contract was for like Nick Saban's decade of dominance. But the pandemic happened and it just changed everything. And so I'd done the reporting, before the pandemic, but then like when that happened, I knew that was going to be, whatever happened, that was going to be the book that I had to write. So after it was all over, and I literally went to a cabin in the woods for like 5 weeks and wrote the manuscript. And I sat down at the computer and I was like, I'm going to have to write the book that I know that I have to write. It's not going to be the book that they expect that the publishers expect to find, okay, when I file it. But I wrote the book that I felt needed to be written. And, for that when I came to terms with, I had to do what I had to do, that freed me up to really write what I felt was a more compelling book. So, you're right about pouring yourself into it. I mean, I thought I was going to go insane. So,
it's crazy. No, but the process of submerging yourself in complicated degree of difficulty subject matter, and now all of a sudden you've had to detour and write a different book. You thought you were writing an easy to sell, easy to buy book of a decade of winning. Everybody in Alabama will buy this.
I might
and now
write that
everyone
book.
hates me. Now everyone totally hates me. Yes, you're right. That's exactly right.
Joe, I know you got your roots over there, but when you were down here covering the Big Three Heat, that Southern drawl wasn't there. You moved back up there and you've turned into Brian Kelly.
Oh, yeah, right. Oh, man, come on. Ask Ethan or Shandell. They'll tell you. Everyone called me Alabama on the beat. Come on.
I mean, just a normal accent that isn't the Miami accent does kind of stand out, but now you're up there and you got that drawl a little bit.
Come on.
Come on. Let me hear you talk about your family.
I didn't even notice his accent.
It's not like that.
Take
me home to those Alabama pines. Come on, Joe. I'm talking the real Bama like Jason Isbell's. Come on.
Listen, as someone who grew up in the South, okay, and, Birmingham has like a very distinct Southern accent compared to other places. Like, believe it or not, it's not like super thick like other places in Alabama, okay? But when you move out of the South and you're surrounded by everybody who does not have a Southern accent, then you start to pick that up, whether you realize it or not. But yeah, you move back and you just, stuff start talking again, like I'm from down there.
Yeah, over time. Or you have these cases like Madonna and Brian Kelly where immediately it happens.
Yeah, that was so much BS. Oh my God. Like, from a Southerner's perspective, like, that is the absolute worst thing that he could have done. I mean, and especially following a guy like Ed Orgeron, who had that just like iconic Louisiana Cajun accent, and that guttural, like he has been drinking battery acid, and for Brian Kelly to come down there, I mean, that's just ridiculous.
It is.
Boudreaux Kelly with an X.
He's putting the mask on, and the big business of it though, Joe, because you've been in the middle of this story, which is Nick Saban got to the money and the CEO-ness of this before anybody else and perfected it and created this corporation that the Joseph Goodman, lifelong journalist, can't really get anywhere near the corporate cold, but what you could get to was the parents. So why does everyone hate you?
Well, not everyone hates me. It's, people either love the book or they hate the book. And I feel like that's probably means it's a good book. But the fact that, I wrote what happened in Alabama, really upset a lot of people. But they bought this book and they thought that there was going to be like, I guess that they thought I was going to ignore everything that happened in 2020. I don't really know what they thought, but there's definitely been a segment of the population in Alabama fans, whatever, who were upset that I went into the entire history of, racism in Alabama and through the lens of the Alabama football team in 2020.
Well, take
season of hope means like the summer of 2020. Okay. If you have to read the book, I don't, but
well, no, it's clear. No, you've made it clear though, because I did think that I did not know that you were writing a macro book. I assumed it, but I didn't know it because it can be very easy, Joe. Like, I don't know what you were going through as you decided to go the different way that the publisher thought you should, or how much of an internal fight it was, or how close to crazy you were going in a cabin lonely when you realized, wait a minute, the book I'm supposed to write that would be an easy success. 10 years of dominance. I'll be a bestseller in Birmingham. Everyone will buy it. Super easy. You decide, nah, I'm gonna do this, and this is gonna make people much more uncomfortable. And I'd
like to know about that process.
Yes.
Though.
Well, yes. I imagine that's a real crisis of the soul if you identify as a writer, reporter, truth teller, storyteller.
It wasn't a crisis of the soul for me. I mean, I knew that that's what I had to do. And I was behind that the entire time, but I didn't tell anyone about it. The crisis of the soul was like, I finally got this opportunity to write a book as a writer, as a journalist, and I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna write what I want to write, and you guys are gonna have to accept it or not. Now, they ended up loving the book. Like on the first read, they loved it immediately, and they were really happy about it. So. My gut was right, I guess. I don't know, or just the truth that I was able to tell was compelling. But yeah, the crisis was for me. I want to write another book. If I write this one book and they hate it because it's not what they wanted me to write, then I'm not going to be able to write another book. So, I guess I had to make that internal decision.
Can I roll with the easier book? I mean, what do you, Decade of Dominance? I mean, it seems like a moneymaker. New York Times bestseller.
Dominance,
yeah.
Dynasty.
Yeah.
Why is that? To me, that's not interesting anymore.
No, I know, but it sells,
Right, exactly.
It's like I was telling Dan Shaughnessy in Boston, he could write a book every couple of years about the 80s Celtics, and every year will be a New York Times bestseller, and so he does it.
And he does. And he does. And
right.
This is what Stugatz is saying. You had to make a choice, because now my guess is that Alabama folks might not want to read the dirty underbelly. If we're fighting about critical race theory in our schools and we're divided by regions all over the place, I don't know if anyone in Alabama football wants to hear from Joseph Goodman on the subject of race.
Well, it is not a monolith like maybe you think it is. Alabama, it's a really diverse state. Okay, so and the South is a really diverse place. So there have been a lot of people who have really loved it and have thanked me for it. But then at the same time, there's definitely that, we don't talk about this. Okay. What are you doing? Element of it all. Like stick to sports, which is just such gaslighting nonsense. But, yeah, you're absolutely right, man. Like there's been some blowback, but I mean, I get that all the time as a columnist, so it's not like I wasn't prepared for that.
Well, what'd you learn, though, as you started, as it crystallized for you? Because did it legitimately happen in the cabin? 5 weeks tucked away, you're like, I'm doing the wrong thing. I need to pivot here. The emotions of the moment require that I write a different book. Is it happening that clearly?
Yeah, well, I had so many notes and so much research, and I sat down to write the book, and yeah, it became pretty clear to me immediately that the thing that I had to write was what was the thing that was my heart was telling me to write. So, I storyboarded everything, and my writing sessions were so insane, Dan. So I would wake up at 1:30 a.m. and I would write until 7:30 a.m. and then I would take a nap until like 9:30 a.m. and then I would write all the way until 9 p.m. with only like a small break for lunch, and I would go take a walk, and then I would outline from like 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. for the next day. Then I would go to sleep from 10 p.m. to 1:30 a.m. and do it again. And so I did that for I actually finished it faster than 5 weeks, but I really wanted to have, so we were all had cabin fever in 2020, and I really wanted the book to have that energy. And the only way that I could put myself in that place, for it to have that is to just do it and like have this like intense, this intense narrative that, and if you read the book, you can tell the way I wrote it, the style. But to get to that place, I felt like that's what I had to do as an artist.
But what'd you learn?
I learned I could write a damn book.
And what did you learn about your reporting about the racial history of Alabama and and the program's context within it?
So what really struck me with the history of the state of Alabama is the fact that, okay, this is a good example, okay? Birmingham, Alabama was founded like a decade after the Civil War, okay? Like it wasn't even around. It wasn't even a city. And yet there was this huge monument to Confederate soldiers in the middle of downtown from 1901 until the summer of 2020, when an Alabama super fan, okay, his name is Jermaine Johnson, he's a comedian, he led a protest in Kelly Ingram Park, which is like, that's the infamous park. Kelly Ingram Park is where the fire hoses happened in Birmingham. Like Birmingham's racial history, as everyone knows, is internationally like infamous. So in this park, this Alabama superfan named Jermaine Johnson, he goes by the stage name Funny Mane, he had like this impromptu speech that ignited everybody. And like that day, they went and protested in front of the monument and they tore it down. So the fact that like the Lost Cause Confederacy is so prevalent in the state of Alabama, these elements and that sentiment really led into the strength of the University of Alabama football program. And people from Alabama understand this, but maybe people elsewhere don't. But for people from Alabama, for a lot of people, for a long time, Alabama was ranked 50th in education and health and like, everything like that. But at least they had Alabama football, and Alabama football like just went and beat the crap out of everybody during the Bear Bryant era. So there was very much like like fighting the Civil War, like in every football game type of ideal. That was just in the background all the time. So there was a lot of things about the state of Alabama that kind of were reflected in the University of Alabama football team for a long time. And so that gave the football players a lot of power, and that built up power is actually what this team in 2020 used, to kind of use their voice to make a stand in their own stand in the schoolhouse door. So I don't know, that's a kind of meandering thought.
Chris Cody, why does the research sheet here say to ask him a question about anachrophobia? Why do all of the things on this research sheet
Arachnophobia, Dan. That's fun.
That's fun. Yeah.
Why is that? Why is that?
I may have gotten a little confused when I saw the last name Goodman. There's a lot of Goodmans in the world.
Okay.
All right. I'm
it.
sorry. I'm interviewing the wrong guy. I thought that this was John Goodman, not Joseph Goodman.
Joseph Goodman, though, a little better looking than I expected. Though, look at him.
Well,
He's a very handsome man.
He was ahead of that whole like Peaky Blinder hat thing too.
We're happy for you. The writing of a book is quite the accomplishment. I mean, you grew up in like small town Alabama newspapers, right? Like you.
So did Brian Kelly.
It's a pretty cool achievement to arrive at the point that the cabin didn't kill you and the stir crazy of that schedule didn't kill you, and you write the book. You write the book that your heart told you to write. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. And just emulating you and idolizing you my entire career, that means a lot.
Oh, but I didn't mean
appreciate that, man. Very nice of you.
Look, it's the truth. I always tell people the greatest sports journalist of my generation is Dan LeBatard. Like full stop. That's it.
I get it.
What?
Misread the entire thing.
It would have been funnier to end on just the note of it being confusing because Stu Gods thought that you were complimenting him. But I didn't want to feel condescending with the idea of having seen what you did and being proud that you did it that way. It's a pretty cool story that you're at the. I mean, people don't know your whole story, but you took a big life and career risk to even leave the comforts of what you knew to come to Miami. And I remember
don't you guys just love each other?
Well, no, I just remember how shocked he was.
Lovey-dovey. I mean, you and Jeff Goodman, huh?